1961. It was a crazy year in American history. Between the space race against Soviet Russia, the freedom rides in the South, and the release of some iconic movies, America was undergoing some drastic changes. The Cold War only became prevalent as the year continued and tensions with Soviet Russia mounted. However, President John F. Kennedy did all he could to rally the spirits of the American people. In the year 1961, the population of the world reached 4 billion. The average cost of a gallon of gas was just 27 cents, while a dozen eggs cost about 30 cents. A new house cost on average about $12,500. The year 1961 saw many highs and lows for the United States. While the country did successfully launch their first human into space, their attempts to overthrow Fidel Castro in Cuba failed in the notorious Bay of Pigs. Despite newly enacted laws against segregation, people of color faced severe discrimination in 1961. This led to a group known as the Freedom Riders forming to test the new laws. Even as the United States dealt with tensions outside of its country, it also had to reckon with tensions mounting from within. Of course, 1961 wasn't all doom and gloom. It was a rich year for popular culture, and new movies such as West Side Story and Breakfast at Tiffany's were released. New inventions of the year included America's first electric toothbrush, as well as the invention of disposable diapers, which were released by Pampers. In today's video, we're going to take a tour through the year 1961. Make sure you stick around until the very end, where we'll reveal a turning point in the United States' role in the space race. Before we get started, be sure to leave a like on this video, and don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you can stay up to date with all of our videos. Factsverse presents the year 1961. January 20th, the inauguration of John F. Kennedy. On January 20th, 1961, John F. Kennedy was inaugurated as the 35th President of the United States. The Democratic president became the first Catholic president in United States history. He served as president until November 22, 1963, when he was tragically assassinated. President John F. Kennedy was an immensely popular president. He worked hard concerning matters of the Cold War with the Soviet Union, and he also encouraged the space race. January 25th, the release of 101 Dalmatians. On January 25, 1961, Walt Disney Productions released the beloved animated film 101 Dalmatians. 2 years prior to the release of this film, Walt Disney Productions had released Sleeping Beauty, which was too costly to reward the company with financial success. Thankfully, 101 Dalmatians was a huge hit and earned Walt Disney Productions $14 million in both the United States and Canada during its theatrical release. The charming animation highly influenced popular culture, and many American families adopted Dalmatian puppies as a result. March 1st, President John F. Kennedy establishes the Peace Corps. During 1961, the year involved the tense Cold War with Soviet Russia. While the Soviet Union was busy attempting to spread communism to other countries, President John F. Kennedy took drastic countermeasures. He established the Peace Corps on March 1st. The Peace Corps took young Americans and trained them in community service. The volunteers were then sent to other countries to spread American ideals, such as freedom and democracy. If you're impressed by President John F. Kennedy's efforts, click the like button to let us know. April 12th, the Soviet Union launches the first man into space. Unfortunately for the United States, the Soviet Union remained solidly ahead of America during the first part of the space race. On April 12, 1961, the Soviet Union launched a spacecraft called Vostok 1 into space. What was special about this spacecraft is that it carried the first human to ever enter space, Yuri Alexeyevich Gagarin. At this point in the space race, it seemed that the Soviet Union was very much winning. However, the United States would eventually be the first country to put a man on the moon, thus granting America an unofficial victory. May 4th, the Freedom Riders are formed. 1961 was a key year for the civil rights movement. Activists began to board buses in the South to test the new Supreme Court decision by Boynton v. Virginia, which declared that racial segregation on transportation to be illegal. African Americans began to board racially segregated buses that rode into the South. Sadly, many of the buses were overturned by white supremacists, and many of the activists were beaten and attacked. However, they didn't give up, and they continued the freedom rides until December 10th of 1961. May 5th, the the United States launches its first human into space. While the Soviet Union may have been the first to launch a human into space, the United States wasn't far behind. On May 5th, America launched Alan Shepard into space aboard the Freedom 7. This was a huge win for the United States, even if they weren't the first country to successfully launch a person into space. Of course, the space race was far from over. May 6th, George Clooney is born. The famous actor George Clooney was born on May 6, 1961. Although there is no way his parents could have guessed what a star he would become. This Academy Award winner would go on to star in countless movies including Ocean's 11, Michael Clayton, and The Descendants. He also played the role of Dr. Doug Ross in the popular television series ER. May 25th, President John F. Kennedy pushes Congress to fund a mission to the Moon. Frustrated by being shown up by Soviet Russia in the space race, President John F. Kennedy called an urgent meeting with Congress. He asked for $7 to $9 billion to be funded directly towards the space program. His goal was to land a man on the Moon before the decade was over. While some thought his dream was crazy, the mission Apollo 11 was a success on July 20, 1969. June 21st, The Parent Trap is released. The Parent Trap was based on a 1941 novel titled Lottie and Lisa. This Walt Disney Productions film soon became a classic, and it inspired the 1998 remake starring Lindsay Lohan. This romantic comedy was a favorite among children and adults alike, although the film was certainly upstaged by even more iconic movie releases in the same year. August 4th, Barack Obama is born. Woody Harrelson and George Clooney were two famous men to be born in the year 1961, but perhaps most famous of all was future President Barack Obama. He was born in Honolulu, Hawaii, which made him the first president to be born outside of the contiguous United States. Of course, that wasn't the only record he broke. Barack Obama went down in history for becoming the first black president in America. October 5th, Breakfast at Tiffanys is released. Breakfast at Tiffanys entered theaters on October 5th. It was based on the Truman Capote novel of the same name, and it became an instant classic. It was one of Audrey Hepburn's most famous and influential roles. The film was also nominated for 3 Academy Awards. October 18th, West Side Story is released. 1961 was a year for yet another classic movie. West Side Story was adapted from the 1957 Broadway musical of the same name. The spin on Shakespeare's classic Romeo and Juliet took an edgy turn. It won 10 of the 11 Academy Awards it was nominated for, including the award for Best Picture. November 29th, the United States launches the Mercury Atlas V mission. Determined to win the space race against Soviet Russia, the United States launched the Mercury Atlas V mission on November 29th. The state-of-the-art spacecraft orbited the Earth twice before landing south of Bermuda. This unmanned spacecraft carried one chimpanzee named Enos, who served as a test before any men were used aboard a similar spaceship. Thankfully, Enos survived the flight, although he died about a year later due to dysentery. Overall, the year 1961 was a groundbreaking time in American history. Were you more surprised by the changes in popular culture at the time or the tensions of the political climate? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to Factsverse for more.